All right, welcome in to the 2023 NBA season retrospective and playoff preview. I'm kind of one of your hosts, David Bracey, um, here with the illustrious Cal Dinicky. Cal, how are you over there?
Doing well. Checking in from St. Petersburg, Florida, the Sunshine City. Really happy to be on. Thank you, David, for having us both. Excited to be here and excited for what looks to be an amazing playoff run and playoff basketball.
Absolutely. We're glad to have you on today. I'm glad to be here, as I'm sure our other guest is also illustrious, also well regarded, and clearly coming in with some personality, some attitude, a little bit of flavor, and a little bit of is that championship swagger? Should I say?
Ring
It's
us. Ring us.
ladies and gentlemen, Brad Hardin. Brad, how you feeling over there?
Feeling good. Reporting live from across the bay from Cal here in Tampa, Florida. Just moved down here from the A. Obviously, you guys may know me as the host of Sports Ethos Atlanta Hawks. We're recording this as the Hawks are playing in a play-in, so I'm doing a little bit of double duty tonight. But glad to be on here to talk a little bit of NBA hoops, playoff basketball, kind of recap the season before we get into the punchlines that Gobert and others have been throwing out leading up to the season ending.
Well, I see what you did there, and I'm a big fan of it, of what you did, not of Rudy Gobert. Well, speaking of double duty, that's exactly what we're going to be doing today, ladies and gentlemen, because we're going to be recapping the season that was and talking about what we think is yet to come. And as Brad alluded to, some of it's currently going on, and that being the play-in. So as we go through the NBA season, for those of you who aren't familiar with the NBA, it stands for National Basketball Association. You're welcome. It's one of the greatest leagues in the world. It is my life, as you can clearly see from 1, 2, 3 posters behind me. If I had more command strips, I would have up more posters. That is a side struggle I will talk about on a different podcast. As far as the season goes, there was lots of surprises, lots of ups and downs, lots of winners, lots of losers, and lots of in-betweeners. And we're going to start off with some of the season highlights. And for me personally, the biggest surprise of the season, and I'm sure you two may agree or not, was probably the Sacramento Kings. I mean, coming out of nowhere to make the playoffs after 16 years of looking from the outside in. Congratulations to them. Congratulations to their head coach, who, in my personal opinion, probably going to win Coach of the Year. So place your bets. You heard it here. Also, congratulations to their starting point guard, De'Aaron Fox. He's a University of Kentucky alum, so the guy balls. Also think he's going to win an award, Clutch Player of the Year. Again, bets with us. Okay, Cal, I know you have been a Kings fan for a long time, back to the Mike Bibby days. That's how you got the nickname on the playground streets we grew up on. What do you think about the Kings? What was a surprise for you? Tell the people what you think.
Obviously, biggest surprise. And David, I got to correct you. You said UK alum De'Aaron Fox. I don't think there's many alums coming out of Kentucky because those boys are one and done. So got to start there. But
You're right.
love for the Kings. So obviously, light the beam. You heard it here first. The Kings have been spectacular. Mike Brown and all those guys, De'Aaron Fox, Kevin Huerter, Harrison Barnes, whoever you want to throw out. I've just been extremely pleased with them. And yeah, for me personally, back in 2002, my first glimpse of sports that I can remember, Mike Bibby, Chris Webber, and the guys facing off against the Lakers in those Western Conference Finals. And it's just good to see them back in it. They haven't been in the playoffs since 2006. And I'm just really excited to see what the Kings can do. And to start off the year, I wasn't quite sure if this would last, if this was just a gimmick, but it has. And they've stayed consistent throughout the year. We obviously know their offense is spectacular. The defense, that's another question, but we'll see with that first round matchup with the Warriors. So, Brad, I just think the Kings are a feel-good story, and everyone wants to see them play. It's been too long, and I had my Mike Bibby jersey as a kid, and I'm willing to pull it back out and see what they can do in this first round.
Man, I can go with the sentimental. I can. I respect that. Covering the Atlanta Hawks, you're welcome for Kevin Huerter. He has made a nice little impact on that team as well to help that offense, and it's hard to go against the Kings as the biggest surprise. But as the season went on, I'm going to go a different route. For me, the biggest surprise is the post-KD Kyrie Brooklyn Nets, a team that a lot of people thought we're going to, and including myself, we're going to crater after that trade. When you trade two all-world players and you get some good return on investment, but for everybody to root for you, especially those who are battling right now in the play-in, for them to fall so they can get one more spot up, for them to hang tough and stay steady at 6, playing great defense. I think the play of Mikal Bridges since he's been in Brooklyn has been spectacular. And you can't forget about the others on the team, you know, the unsung heroes, Dodo, obviously, Finney Smith coming over from the Mavericks. I've always liked Royce O'Neal's game. He's not the sexiest player, but, I mean, you got some shooters and Seth Curry, and you have Joe Harris and others, and Big Claxton in the middle. I don't think they're going to make a run, but I'm going to give them the nod as far as my biggest surprise, especially me thinking that they were just going to crater after trading Kyrie and KD. So I want to tip my cap to, you know, the job that Jacques Vaughn has done in Brooklyn. They're playing hard. They defend. They can space you out, and we make for an interesting series versus the 76ers in the first round.
It absolutely will. And you're 100% right. Shout out to Mikal Bridges, because that dude is an absolute bucket. He's been a problem on defense. I mean, he just doesn't miss games. I can see why the Nets didn't give him up even when they were offered 5 first-round draft picks, which is just disgusting. But so is Mikal Bridges, so you got to hold on to that guy. And, you know, while we're talking about surprises, you know, MIP, most improved player, is definitely an award that I think there's been a lot of guys who they could say that they have a pretty fair shot at. My personal pick for that award is honestly going to be SGA, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, if you're not familiar. Himmy Carter, Tim Duncan. Yes, I am. I definitely am. UK all the way, I believe blue. If you don't know, ask about me. But Lauri Markkanen, big shotgun. He's no joke. He is no joke, and he has really transferred his game that we saw in Euroball this past summer and brought it back home. Well, I shouldn't say back home. He's brought it back to the States. Okay, and that dude is falling out of control for the city of Utah. He has looked absolutely amazing. I know the Jazz were really trying to lose games, but when you got a guy like that, it makes it hard. Cal, I'm going to pass it back to you. Who is your pick for MIP? Who is a surprising player that had a breakout season for you? Who kind of caught your eye this year?
So I'll start with the most improved player, and I got to give New York some love. In the Knicks, Jalen Brunson has been phenomenal. And when he signed with the Knicks fans were none too pleased. They wanted Donovan Mitchell, and they went all in on Brunson. And you remember the vibe this summer. It was, really, we got Brunson. You know, he's a B-lister type point guard. Yeah, he's a starter, and he just balled out. He was 24-6. Led them to the 5 seed, and I've just been so impressed with everything Jalen Brunson's done. He's an Illinois kid, David. You and I have seen him since his days at Stevenson High School, winning state championships. So to see what he did in college, I think everyone knew he was an all-time great, but didn't quite know what level he could get to in the NBA. And we saw it with the Mavs last postseason. We saw the glimpses, and I was kind of shaking my head when the Mavs gave up on him. You know, he has the connections to New York. And he got his way there, and he's done everything he needed to do. Between him and Julius Randle, I just love what the Knicks have done. But Jalen Brunson he's my most improved player. He's been phenomenal, and I just think the Knicks they're ready to go. We're going to talk about them a little bit later, but I also do have to give some shout out to Mikal Bridges. Brad, I know you mentioned it. Mikal Bridges, since joining the Nets, has just been incredible. He's averaging around 26 points a game. Last year, he averaged 14 points a game. So when we talk about this award, it's Mikal Bridges. Everything about him stands out to me. And to see his role grow, we know there were a lot more options before him in Phoenix. But now with the Nets, and now with a larger role and getting to shoot a little bit more, I've just been so impressed. So Brad, what do you think about those two, and who are some of the guys that, you know, come to mind for you?
I feel like you guys were like flies on the wall looking at my notes, because you've mentioned both of the guys that I had. I had an Eastern Conference MIP in Western Conference MIP. And although I did not put SGA, it was not because of any slight to the University of Kentucky. I think SGA has been ascending and playing at this level for a while. It's not. He's been playing at this level for a while. He just continues to get better and better. But when you think about most improved, you think about a dramatic improvement when it comes to that award. And certainly Lauri Markkanen is deserving of it. I mean, to be an all-star, whether you think he deserves it or not, because the all-star game was in Salt Lake City this year, certainly he has elevated his game to be the number one guy for the Jazz. Kevin, if you're listening to this podcast, does not mean he's the number one on the team, but I will say that he, by default, he's the number one on that team because of how he's played this year, especially on both ends of the floor, which is very – it's not been talked about in his game. But certainly with Coach Hardy there in Utah, he certainly bought into that side of the floor for the sake of the team. And for them to be close to the play-in when they should have been in the Wemby sweepstakes, and a lot of people were criticizing them winning games, you did not think you were going to get this return on investment when you make that trade. So certainly Lauri Markkanen on the Western side of things. And then on the East, got to give it to Jalen Brunson, especially when you see where the Knicks are in the standings. As the 5 seed right now, the 4 or 5 seed, they're in the 4 or 5 game. Hawks, we don't like anything about the Knicks, so I try not to pay attention to them. But it's hard not to pay attention to what Jalen Brunson has done. And I mean, even Luka took note. I mean, he got interviewed the other day. How much do you miss Jalen Brunson? He said a lot, basically. And I'm not talking about 21 Savage's song. He's missed Jalen Brunson. To have that back to the basket, to slow the pace down, play at his own pace, tough guard. I mean, he was the best backup point guard in the league, and now he gets an opportunity to start. And now the one position that the Knicks have missed for the last 20 years, they've missed on. They found their guy in Jalen Brunson. And I just think he's a great fit for that city. I love how he's elevated that team. I mean, because, hey, Julius Randle was on this team. Jalen Brunson is not. Look how much better they've done, and look how Jalen Brunson has played running things in New York. So I got to give, Jalen Brunson the nod on the East Coast for most improved player, in my opinion.
And in the last 23 years, the Knicks have made the second round of the playoffs one time. That was in the 2012-2013 season with Melo. Yep. And we'll talk about this Cleveland-New York matchup. I know a lot of us like that, but they have a chance to get back to that second round, and I'm curious to see what the Knicks can do. And basketball is better when New York is good.
100%, you're right. New York is the Mecca. The Garden is unmatched. And it's definitely good to see that good basketball energy come back to the city of New York. While we're talking about the city of New York, Brad, I do want to just address what you said about my loyalty for University of Kentucky. As Cal said, non-alums, which is accurate. My love for the University of Kentucky ends with Julius Randle, okay? Because, again, another podcast, another conversation. However, sticking with the Knicks, tangentially, Jalen Brunson, I'm glad that you brought up Luka Doncic's comments, because speaking of biggest surprises and positives of the season, let's talk about the disappointments, people. And the biggest disappointment to me, and probably most of you watching NBA, it's got to be the Dallas Mavericks. Let me talk about it. They made a midseason trade to go get Kyrie Irving. I like Kyrie as a basketball player. Yeah. As a person, I'm undecided. As a basketball player, I like him. He's very talented. The finishing at the rim, his skills with the ball, his playmaking, incredible. He is an absolute wizard. But when the Mavericks traded the second and third best players from their team that was just in the Western Conference Finals for one guy who can't play defense, who can't rebound, he destroyed their season. He destroyed their season. The Mavericks made an incredibly risky gamble to try to appease a young star in Luka to get him what they thought he needed, which was a superstar co-star. But while I agree Luka Doncic needs a superstar co-star, trading away all of your defense and depth to bring that into the house is not the correct move to make. And we see the results it brought for the franchise. They decided to pack it up and try to tank with less than 5 games left in the season. I'm sorry, Mark Cuban. It's a little late for that. And the public comments that they've made about tanking, both from Mark Cuban and the coach, is exactly what's got them in this hot water with the NBA, and that's why they're currently being investigated. So they better hope that this gamble pays off and that they're able to keep their lottery pick. Because if that pick is 11 through infinity, guess who it goes to? The city of New York because of the Kristaps Porzingis trade. And that's exactly why the Mavericks tanked their season at the end to try to keep their pick. Because you know who they're not going to keep? They're not going to keep that. They're not. He's gone. You want to know where he's going? He's gone. He's leaving. It's over. The Mavericks were an absolute disappointment. And the Luka Doncic situation, while it is not in the red, I think we have firmly moved into yellow territory. Because what did Luka say when they asked him about tanking? He says, I don't tank. You do now, buddy. You do now. You do now. Brad, I got a lot of energy on this, so I'm gonna hand it off to you because I need a breather. But talk to me, let me know who's the biggest disappointment for you, whether that be an individual player, a franchise, an overall situation, just anything across the landscape of the NBA from this last season.
I feel like it would be low-hanging fruit to say it was the Dallas Mavericks. I was never high on the trade personally, and David, you can attest to that because I think about defense, and they definitely got worse on that end, making that trade for a rental player that is probably going to be gone this offseason. The Mavericks and Kyrie Irving have a decision to make, and hopefully they make it together. But I'm going to go a different route. Biggest disappointment, and it's going to be weird because this team is a playoff team, but I have to say the biggest disappointment in my opinion is the Warriors' road record and the defensive decline this year. To be the defending champs and to go 11-30 on the road this year. 11-30 on the road this year.
Gross.
Is abysmal. It is absolutely abysmal. And then you got to think about their decline on the defensive end. Last year, they were the #1 rated defensive team in the NBA. They're 17th this year. They dropped 16 spots to 17. So the decline defensively in the poor road record, championship hangover, whatever you want to call it. Yes, there was an injury to Steph Curry earlier this year. Yes, Wiggins was gone for an extended period of time. Yes, you had to start the year with another punch. Can't wait to talk about Gilbert, but to talk about the Draymond Jordan Poole punch that started the year. Now they have rounded into shape down the stretch, and I'm gonna talk a little bit more about them later. But for me, the route I'm gonna go with the Golden State Warriors, how they played on the road and the decline defensively. But it's a new season, playoffs is here. We'll see if they can get to that booth, turn to Clark Kent. Not Clark, but Cal. Who was your biggest disappointment?
So before I touch on that, David, I completely agree with you on the Kyrie trade. I wasn't huge on it, but can you honestly tell me if they don't trade for Kyrie, what's their ceiling and what does that Dallas team with Dorian Finney-Smith, Spencer Dinwiddie, and those guys, what do they do in the playoffs? Because I don't see them getting back to the Western Conference Finals.
Well, Cal, I think that's very fair. I'm not sitting here and telling you that I think Luka, Dodo, Spencer, and the rest of those cats would be able to get back to the Western Conference Finals. But I think, the floor for them should be playoffs, which the Mavericks are not in. So, I mean, when you put it like that, it's just really, it's too bad that they made that decision. Because, I mean, Dorian Finney-Smith, for those who don't know, is a legit wing defender in the NBA. He can guard positions 1 through 3 pretty well. Some 4s, it depends. He's not the biggest guy. He's a competent jump shooter, and he is a guy who is a glue guy. He buys in, and that's why he's played so well with Brooklyn. That's why they've done so well, because they have a lot of glue guys that know how to play together and make systems work. So I definitely think the Mavericks would have had a better outcome, I should say, than the one they ended up with. When you think about the fact that, I mean, they weren't even 500 in the last 20 games with Kyrie and Luka. It's just, it's such a disappointment. It really didn't have to go this way. I know it takes time for guys to gel, and for things to click, but they really made a risk, and I don't think it was one that was well calculated. And unfortunately, they made that risk on Kyrie after losing Jalen Brunson, who they could have kept, and it just really has hurt. It has hurt them, and Dallas is in trouble.
Yeah, and you brought up the word risk, and that's what you get into when you mention Kyrie Irving's name. You don't know what you're going to get, and you
Yep.
mentioned all the skills and the talent and the shoes that he has, and all my middle schoolers love him, and everyone our age and above is like, all right, we've seen this before. We love the skills, but come on, we got to get it together. So, yeah, they took a swing on Kyrie. It didn't work. They tanked. They're getting investigated, and it's just not looking good for Mark Cuban and those guys. So I'll get to my biggest disappointment, and that was the Minnesota Timberwolves. So Minnesota finished with the 8 seed, so there's still a chance they could make the playoffs. But Brad, I'll let you touch on this here in a second. The trade for Gobert, they gave up everything. They gave up picks. They mortgaged the house for it, and it didn't turn out so great. And who knows, maybe they could surprise us and things could turn around. But my issue is that Anthony Edwards is going to be a superstar in this league. We all know that. And we know that he's not quite there yet. He's still in his early 20s, and it's proven that I think Dwayne Wade was the only superstar to win a finals before 25. I believe Dwayne Wade was 24 in 2006. So you have to give Anthony Edwards time to develop, and for them to trade everything for Rudy Gobert, who is a defensive presence, obviously, all NBA defensive team consistently. But I just didn't think it was the right move for that team. If they would have waited, and then eventually picked up someone else, I think it would have been better. So I was disappointed in the trade when it happened. I was disappointed that they finished 8th overall. And then we can talk about the last game of the season with the 2 punches being thrown, with 2 guys going to be out for their play-in game. And I just like some of the pieces there, but they just I'll let you guys take over from here. They disappointed me.
Well, I had this in my notes, but I'm gonna. It's not credited by anyone in the league, so I'm not saying anything that I've heard. But I've speculated this for the last couple of years, and I think this is the summer it's going to happen. I think this is the summer that Karl Anthony Towns finally gets moved out of Minnesota. I think it's time. He missed 50 plus games this year with a calf injury. They made the move to allow him to play the 4, because obviously we know Towns ain't built like that. I don't know what's up with you Kentucky guys. I keep taking shots.
Careful.
It's so fun.
Careful.
So fun. But I mean, he doesn't want to bang in the paint. He's acting like Anthony Davis, not wanting to play the 5. And you bring in Gobert. You, like Cal said, you mortgage the house. You get rid of Walker Kessler, which I like the draft pick when it happened. Obviously,
yes,
watching SEC basketball, I saw the impact that Kessler brought on a defensive end. Now, offense, but I mean, to have that on your team, now he was going to have to develop, but obviously he got thrown into the fire to Utah, and we've seen the return on investment early from him, and I think he's going to be a long-time starter in this league if he continues at this pace. But the spacing is off. I'm not saying it stunts the growth of Anthony Edwards. I think the best thing that could have happened maybe this year was D'Angelo Russell finally being moved on. And they still got some good pieces there. But and we keep alluding to the elephant in the room, what happened towards the end of the year, last game against my Pelicans, that's a black guy going into the play-in. And now you're out without Rudy Gobert. I don't see them beating the Lakers. Maybe I'm foreshadowing. I don't see them beating the Lakers. And hell, I don't have them making out of the play-in this year. I don't. So I think it's time for a move to be made in Minnesota. And I think it's time for Karl Anthony Towns to be traded to warmer weather. I'm not going to say a location, but I think this is the summer that Karl Anthony Towns is no longer a Minnesota Timberwolf. What'd you think about that, David? About your Wildcats?
I think a couple things. I love Towns. So I'm not gonna, speak down on his name, but Brad, your points are valid. He is not the most boisterous on the low block, you could say. As he loves to call himself, self-appointed greatest three-point shooting big man of all time. I guess if you put enough qualifiers in anything, you can be the number one. Call the Guinness Book of World Records. I'm sure they got a slot for you. But you guys are 100% right. You both said it. Not only did Minnesota give up, not only did Minnesota mortgage the house. Okay, they mortgaged the house. Okay, they put a lien on all their cars. Okay, they took their wife's ring to a pawn shop and got it appraised. Like they put it all on the line, and for what? I don't think it's really even that crazy to say that Walker Kessler is a better interior defender than Rudy Gobert. And the dude is a rookie, okay? He's a rookie, but he's not a Girl Scout cookie, okay? There's a reason they call him the sheriff. And Minnesota got rid of the sheriff and they brought in a hall monitor, okay? Because Rudy Gobert is a fake tough guy, okay? And that has been the most open secret in the league for the longest time. So I didn't work out with him in Utah between him and Donovan Mitchell. And while, I do give Rudy Gobert his credit for, accepting responsibility, not only in the fallout of that situation, and him, taking COVID as a joke before the NBA got shut down, him punching his own teammate in the middle of a very important game and then missing the play in. He's apologized for all those things. So we got to forgive him, right?
And we can't forget that Minnesota, their excuse after the trade was, well, we kept Jaden McDaniels. That was their big thing. And then he ends up punching a locker and he's out for the play-in. Go on, David.
And again, to Cal's point, that echoes a big issue that has plagued Minnesota for a long time, and that is immaturity. It is immaturity. That's why Anthony Edwards is bragging about how much he loves to eat Popeyes. Okay, that's why Karl-Anthony Towns is running around here taking pictures with Jordan Woods and not going to practice. Okay, which I can't necessarily say I'm mad at him.
Jordan Woods did not need to catch a stray.
No, she did not catch a stray. She caught an NBA player. Okay, she caught an NBA player. Is what she caught. Okay, and they are in love. Okay, and I respect that. So shout out to them.
Yeah, she also called Tristan Thompson, but that's
again another podcast. NBA After Dark. Catch us after this. Stay tuned. Subscribe, like, follow this channel. No, but seriously, to get back on track, immaturity has been a big issue in Minnesota, and I think Karl-Anthony Towns has played a pivotal role in that because he, for better or worse, has been their locker room leader because he's honestly one of the longest tenured players. They drafted him. He has been the face of the franchise. Now Anthony Edwards has shown up, so they kind of got a move to make. In my personal opinion, I think I agree with Brad. I think they should move Towns. They're going to get more value out of him. But I think, truthfully, they might have to try to do something with Gobert, which is just not going to be great. Because they're not going to get back anything compared to what they gave up, and it's just going to make them look like even more of a joke. But it's not the first time Alex Rodriguez has been the butt of a joke, so he'll get over it. They'll move forward, and they'll figure it out. And speaking of moving forward, a big topic I definitely wanted to get both of your opinions on is who's your pick for MVP. I'll give mine last, because I don't want to influence anybody one way or another. But I think it's no secret that truthfully, there's only three individuals in this conversation. Giannis Antetokounmpo, I can say it, can't spell it. Good luck to you if you want to try that. Nikola Jokic, I can say it and spell it, and Joel Embiid, also can say and spell it. Those are the three. So with that being said, Cal, who's your favorite for MVP this year?
I'll make this short and sweet. I like Joel Embiid. I think him finishing second the last 2 years really was a slight to him. And anytime you turn on SportsCenter, it's JoJo dropping 40 and picking up the boards. And you also have to look in the MVP race at how their team finished. I think it's unfair not to look at that. So the fact that the Sixers got the 3 seed in the East, and he's been by far their best player, the best player, in my opinion, in the league all year. I think you have to give it to him. And, you're not supposed to look at the last couple of years. It should be just a snapshot of this year. But I do think it's a narrative talk for MVP, and the fact that Jokic has won back-to-back is going to persuade some voters not to vote for him. But I still think, even with that aside, that he's proven to the league that he's finally going to get his this year.
I'm going to make it short and sweet too. This is Jokic. Talented, skilled offensive player. Cannot be denied. Great for the game. This is Embiid. Maybe not as respected, but dominant all-around player and deserves their flowers. Joel Embiid deserves his flowers. He should have won an MVP by now. He should have won an MVP by now. But thanks to the stellar play on both ends this year of the floor, and maybe a Jokic injury down the stretch and struggles for the Denver Nuggets, it has opened the door for Jokic to not three-peat, but to finally give Joel Embiid his flowers and reward him for the dominant player that he truly is. The dominant player that she truly is. I did not make this up before I came here. This is off the cuffs. This is me freestyling.
I don't know if we believe that.
You can believe what you want, Big Blue Nation. But anyway, Joel Embiid is my MVP. Giannis has a compelling argument for sure. And all three of them have a compelling argument. I mean, this is the era of the big man right now. Yes. We mentioned Towns. He's not in this conversation, but we've mentioned several bigs: Anthony Davis, Towns, Embiid, Giannis, Jokic. That's a lot of really good bigs in this league right now. And the league is in a really good place. But the king of the cream of the crop, the king of that mountain right now, it's got to be Joel Embiid.
Yeah, I mean, back-to-back scoring champ. I got him too. I'm riding with Embiid. It's a three-peat on this show. I think that, his play on both ends of the court has really spoken for itself. To your point, Brad, and Cal, to your point, I don't necessarily love the whole narrative component, but I mean, I kind of feel like it's his turn. This is his time, and for the past two, the gap between him and the next guy has been much more considerable. I think Embiid, if he hasn't already bridged that gap, has at least caught up to Jokic, and they're staring eye to eye. So in my opinion, in this race, the win goes to Embiid. So I mean, we'll see what happens, but yeah, that's definitely my pick. Before we dive into the playoff picture, one thing I do want to talk about is the play-in, which is going on right now. The play-in, although it's not technically a part of the playoffs, is a part of the postseason. So right now we got the Hawks going up against the Heat. Remains to be seen who's going to win that game. Shortly thereafter, we're going to have the Lakers versus the Timberwolves. And for this next part of the conversation, since there's only so many play-in games, I really want to know each matchup. I'm going to pass it to each one of you individually. Each matchup, who's your pick and why? So we got the game going on right now. So your opinion could be swayed since you kind of know what it's looking like somewhat. So let's skip ahead to the game that's about to be up next. Cal, I'm going to start with you again. Timberwolves, Lakers. Who you got and why?
To me, this is a slam dunk. It's the Lakers. They've been rolling these last few weeks of the season. I think what Anthony Davis has meant to that team has just been incredible. LeBron's going. I love what they did, getting Jared Vanderbilt and a few other guys, deloading. He's been playing well for them. So I like the Lakers over the Wolves. We already talked about the Wolves' struggles with players being out and them just being in disarray. So I like the Lakers for sure in that. I'd be surprised if they lost, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Lakers could do some damage after that. So, Brad, what are you thinking in that Lakers-Wolves game?
I'm going with what's on David Bracey's shirt, the Lakers. For the same reasons, Cal. 8-2 in the last 10 games. They've been playing pretty much at a playoff level. They've been basically playing playoff level basketball for the last month and a half. Since the beginning of March, they are 14-6, averaging 121 points per game, shooting around 38% from three, which is about 5 percentage points higher than they were in the beginning of the year. They're playing with a lot of confidence. They're a top half defensive team, relatively healthy, playing aggressive. They're top 2 in the league, getting to the free throw line, which matters in the postseason. Top 10 rebounding team. I like the moves that you alluded to. And I don't want to, dismiss Rui Hachimura as well, who's been playing really well off the bench. I'm not saying they're a championship contender, but if there's a team that I would not want to play in a play-in or as a higher seed playing a lower seed playing a higher seed, I would not want to see the Lakers right now. Would not. AD's been playing close to bubble level performance as we've seen the last few years. So you got to go with the Lakers right now. Godspeed to whoever has to play them in the first round. Godspeed.
Yeah, you ain't saying nothing new. Going to tomorrow's games, Brad, I'm sticking with you. We got the Raptors up against the Bulls in the first slate. You rolling with the 6 or you rocking with Chi-Town?
Now,
Here we go.
the 6 got a special spot in my heart. Shout out Jordan
Uh-oh.
Lloyd.
Throw it up, Cal.
Won a championship with the
Shout
Toronto
out Jay
Raptors.
Lloyd, 100%.
We know about the player development. We know about Scotty Barnes and Pascal Siakam. Fred VanVleet can't speak right now. But they both been playing similar basketball in the last 10 to 12 games. But I'm going to give the nod to the Chicago Bulls in this matchup purely because in playing games, and we've seen this recently, stars are what win playing games. And if you have a star on your team, that gives you an advantage. If you listen to my Sports Ethos Atlanta Hawks podcast, one of the keys to the game tonight, I said that the Hawks stars and DeJounte Murray and Trae Young have to outplay the Heat stars, Bam Adebayo and Jimmy Butler, in order to win this game. Seems like my prediction is right. I think that's going to hold true in this Toronto-Chicago game. Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan, those are stars. No matter what you think about them, no matter what you think about DeMar not shooting enough threes or aging or what LaVine means or doesn't mean to that locker room, they have 2 stars. And I'm going to go with the 2 stars over a coach that may be on his way out, Pascal Siakam, who may be on his way out, VanVleet, who may be on his way out, and the Raptors may be trying to reset. So I'm going to go with the Chicago Bulls winning that matchup up in the 6. Sorry, Drake. Not going to be enjoying your home playoff basketball this year. Going to have to catch some flights, which I know you don't have a problem with. Got your own plane. So, Cal, got to kick it to you, man.
I'm gonna have to zag on you, Brad. I'm gonna go with the Raptors. So couple points I want to make. First of all, it's in Toronto, and Toronto's been a good home team this year. So I know that doesn't necessarily correlate. We see that the Hawks are up, I think currently 6 or 7 right now on the Heat in Miami. So that doesn't prove my point well. But I have a personal experience with Scotty Barnes that I'll never forget. So in 2019, I was in Greece visiting my cousin, and it just so happens that the under 19 FIBA World Championships were going on. So USA was down there, and I got to catch a game. It was Cade Cunningham, Jalen Suggs, Scotty Barnes, Tyrese Halliburton. And these kids were going to be seniors in high school. And the one thing that stood out to me in that game, they played Senegal, was that Scotty Barnes was an absolute star. And his smile, his personality, his charisma, everything about him stood out amongst everything. And ever since that day, I've been all on board. You know, he can guard 1 through 5. He was Rookie of the Year last year. I like this guy. And I know he's not on the level of a Zach LaVine or a DeMar DeRozan, but I liked what Toronto has done this year defensively. I just think that they'll be able to lock up those guys that you had mentioned. And I'm just going to go with the gut and say that Toronto gets it done at home, and my guy Scotty Barnes prevails. So I'm going to take Toronto. David, what are you thinking?
Can I jump in real quick?
Yep.
What you got to say? Here we go.
I love the point about Scotty Barnes. Florida man energy from West Palm Beach down here in Florida. So I like the connection, and I 100% agree with that home court advantage. I mean, if you've seen what Miami's looking like right now, not a lot for the crowd to cheer for, and not a true home court advantage. It's not LeBron, it's not the D-Wade Heat in Miami. And you know, Toronto, what they say is that you have a whole country behind you. So I cannot fault you for choosing the Raptors in your pick. So I just wanted to give you your flowers in that one. But David, I'll kick it back to you.
I mean, I think I'm just going to rock with the Bulls out of, pure, I'm from Illinois, so I'm going to be making Illinois, I got my Bulls t-shirt. I'll put that on tomorrow. If they end up doesn't look good, I'll probably switch shirts at half, you know. So I got plenty of shirts. So I'll figure it out. But yeah, I'm probably gonna rock with the Bulls on that because Brad, I think to your point, you know, stars do help you win games. The Raptors, Cal, to your point, have been really good at home this year. I think they've improved their roster. I really like Pirtle, how do you say his name? Jakob. He is,
Jakob Poeltl, yeah.
yeah, he's played very well. He's been a great addition for them. But yeah, I think I'm going to give it to Chicago, and hopefully they prove me right tomorrow. And that leads me into the last game in the play-in, which is going to be probably the game I'm most excited for, which is the Thunder versus the Pelicans. I don't think it's a secret. I'm rocking with the Thunder on this. Obviously, I'm Team SGA all the way. I think the Thunder have had a great season. They got a great roster. I really like their coach, and I'm just excited to see them, playing in the postseason, even if it's not the playoffs. It's still the postseason. So I give them credit for that. Nobody thought they were going to be here. They just continue to win games all year. And they got a lot of guys that are young and really fun to watch. So because I know what Brad's going to say, Cal, I'm going to kick it to you. Who you got?
So we're in the 4th year of the play-in, and it seems like every year the Pelicans are in this play-in game. Every time I turn it on, they're the late game in the West Coast, and they've been here before, so I'm going to take New Orleans. To Brad's point earlier, stars tend to win play-in games, and I definitely think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is going to be the best player on the floor, but I'm going to rock with CJ McCollum, Brandon Ingram, and those guys. They've been in multiple games like that before, so they're not going to be scared of the moment. They've been there before, and Oklahoma City, quite frankly, has not. And for as much as I want them to win, from a biased opinion, we love how young they are and how talented they are. And there's just something about Oklahoma City that people are excited for, especially when Chet Holmgren returns next year. But I'm going to take the safe pick here and take New Orleans, despite what potential I see in Oklahoma City as that 10 seed.
I'm going to go with you, Cal. Obviously, being from the great state of Louisiana, I got to represent my Pelicans, but I'm not going to go for homer reasons. To your point, stars win games, and SGA is a star. But the best player on the court and the best player probably I'm gonna say this, the best player in the Southeast Division in the last month has been Brandon Ingram. Brandon Ingram has been an absolute killer the last month of the season.
Ingram's been balling.
And he has led the Pels out of the cellar. Because they had their rough patch, and it was a lot to do with injuries, with Zion and BI being out, and then you sprinkle CJ being gone, Herb Jones. But this is about as close to healthy as his team has been all year. I don't get to talk about the Pelicans often, but I want to brag on Herb Jones being healthy, CJ McCollum being the leader in that locker room, and another player who I maybe not this year, but maybe next year is his MIP year, Trey Murphy. He has been spectacular this year, both ends of the floor, being able to shoot the ball, his ability to play above the rim and guard multiple positions. I mean, you're 6'9", playing the 2 for the Pelicans. That's scary. A lot of length, a lot of size, a lot of skill on both ends of the court, and a lot of youth. But I'm going to rock with the Pelicans being in the Smoothie King Center, a.k.a. the blender, and I already know it's going to be teed up down there. And if you in the New Orleans area, if you in Baton Rouge, if you in Lafayette, if you in Hammond, I don't care where you are in the south part of the boot, I'm going to need you to pull up, baby. I'm going to need you to pull up tomorrow. Ticket's only $23. What can you blame? What can you do? Pull up to the game, get a free T-shirt, be on national television.
It's a trap.
And
don't do it.
Get the shirt and wave it around like a helicopter. Yeah, like you Petey Pablo from North Carolina, but it's the boot, baby. I got to go with the Pelicans. Go win that game. I know my rap reference, bro. Come on now.
You respect Petey Pablo on this podcast.
I said he's from North Carolina.
I mean, I do just want to say one thing. You said BI's been the best player in their division in the past month. That may be true because he has been balling. And you said he's brought them out of the cellar. Well, he must have dragged them out the cellar into the basement, Brad, because they ain't in the playoffs just yet. Okay. So it ain't Fat Tuesday. Okay. It's Tuesday, April 11th. You better hold off on the parade and wait to see what happens.
They just had a
Okay?
parade. They just had a parade.
They did. That's a
Well
different
attended.
organization.
Well attended.
I believe it. We'll see if the playoff game is well attended because I know they have struggles selling out games. Anyways, speaking of the actual playoffs, and not the Pelicans who are not in the playoffs, they're in the play-in, as we established. We're going to take a look across the playoff landscape, and we're just going to hit a couple high-level topics that I think are going to be a lot of fun. And speaking of fun, we're going to talk about our favorite matchups across the playoffs. I mean, we're not going to get necessarily into all of them. That'll be on a later pod. You think we're going to give you all this content for free up front? Subscribe, like, follow all of us individually and as a unit, please and thank you. And speaking of units, the squad I'm looking forward to showing down in the playoffs has got to be the Cleveland Cavaliers. That matchup with the New York Knicks, to me, is my personal favorite, and I'm going to give you two primary reasons why. First one is obviously the drama. Donovan Mitchell's supposed to go to New York, but then they don't offer enough, and he gets swooped out from under them by the Cleveland Cavaliers. The who? He's going where? Who did they trade? Well, I mean, you know who they traded now. You know the name, Laurie Markkinen, and you probably will for a long time. But you were familiar with the name Donovan Mitchell, and Cleveland got a real stud. I mean, this dude put up 71 on the second day of 2023. That's how hungry he is, okay? That's how hungry this guy is. Darius Garland's no joke. Evan Mobley's no joke. Jared Allen's no joke, okay? And I'm not saying the Knicks are, but the team that Cleveland has is my second point, and the second thing I'm looking forward to the most in this matchup, and that's their defense. They have an incredible defense. Evan Mobley is special. I think he's going to have some breakout performances in this playoffs, and I know what Donovan Mitchell's capable of. He's always popcorn. So him versus Brunson in the backcourt, oh, that's going to be so much fun. Quickly versus Karis LeVert. I mean, really just pick your popcorn scorer. You know, it's gonna be showtime all around. So that's definitely the matchup I'm looking forward to the most. Brad, what about you? What's a matchup that you're looking forward to across the playoffs for either the East or the West?
That's a really good choice. I was trying not to pick that matchup too, and I will want to say one thing. The X factor in that series is Jared Allen. He's healthy. He's a rim protector. You know the Knicks are used to having that presence. So that's one thing they've had is some size in the post over the last several years. But ain't nobody rocking with Jared Allen. Then you got Evan Mobley too. So that's going to be a really fun series, and I can't wait for that one. The 4-5 is always physical and tightly contested in the Eastern Conference. But the playoff matchup that I'm looking forward to is whoever the Lakers are going to play. I'm just going to say this now. For the reasons I stated earlier, they're a team that no one really wants to see right now. They're peaking at the right time. They're doing extremely well on the offensive end, just scoring more points, shooting better from the field. They're in the top 10, I think, in field goal percentage in the NBA. So whoever they play, whether it's the Grizzlies or whether they play for some reason they lose and they have to take on the Nuggets. If I'm the Nuggets, I do not want to see LeBron James and Anthony Davis in the first round. I do not want to see them. If you're the Nuggets, you better be praying for a Lakers win tonight so you avoid them. And then you got to go see Ja, which remember the fireworks earlier this year with Shannon Sharp and T. Moran, Ja Morant, Dylan Brooks, and all that. In Lakerland, in formerly known as Staples Center, crypto.com. It don't sound as good, but that's the series that I'm looking forward to. That's the series I'm looking forward to because as great as Ja Morant has been, as much as I love Desmond Bain, as dominant as JJJ has been on a defensive end, JJJ is not Anthony Davis, and ain't nobody on that court better than LeBron James. So we'll see if those moves help the Lakers make a move and they pull off a first-round upset over the Grizzlies, or are we going to see if all that bark and all that growling and that talking that's down in Grindtown in the Memphis is really for real? So curious to see what playoff series you're interested in, Cal.
David, this was the most difficult question when you asked me to pick my favorite playoff match, because there's so many good ones. And, I wavered between New York and Cleveland and a few others. And I got set on one, and that's the battle in Northern California between the Sacramento Kings and the Golden State Warriors, because as we alluded to earlier, the excitement, the energy that's going to be in Sacramento is going to be out of this world. Those fans have been starving for a playoff series for so long, since 2006. So to see the Warriors come to town, a less than 2-hour drive, obviously they're going to be flying, but the proximity makes it a compelling series to me, but also the fact that the Warriors are such a wild card. I could see them losing in the first round. I could see them going all the way. And the fact that the Kings have put up so many points this year, and De'Aaron Fox has been unleashed and has been one of the most clutch players in the league this year, not to mention Sabonis. And that trade for Tyrese Halliburton, you often don't see both teams make out well. But in that situation, I think the Pacers and the Kings made out well. Both guys have done extremely well for them. I know I was hesitant when they got rid of Halliburton, but it's turned out well for them. So we got to get our popcorn ready, because those are going to be some late night West Coast thrillers, 140s, 150s, 160s scoring. I just can't wait. And, people want to see offense. There's not going to be a ton of defense. And the storyline I'm looking for in that is how Wiggins gels back with the Warriors, because, he had to take some time off for personal reasons. And the Warriors have been a joke on the road, as we talked about earlier. So we know Sacramento, if they win that first game and that excitement goes up in that city, I could see anything happening. I think it's important for Sacramento to do well at home, because we know the Warriors are going to rock at home. So that's my first round matchup that I'm really looking forward to. But Brad, out here on this East Coast, we got to stay up super late, as you know, to watch those West Coast games, and it's going to make for some early mornings. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, my
No,
carrier
you're
gonna
not
be
lying
working
about
overtime over here. That
Yeah, you're
carrier
not
is gonna be
lying.
working.
You're not lying. Those are going to be some late night games. I mean, I'm Central Time Zone, but even still, yeah, that Pacific's time slot is no joke, especially in the playoffs, because I mean, every possession counts. So those games tend to drag a little long. And I'm glad you brought up that matchup, Cal, because if I was thinking about potential upsets, I'm not gonna lie, that's definitely, I think, probably the easiest one to kind of bet on. I guess that would kind of depend on who the Nuggets end up drawing. I think if the Nuggets draw the Lakers, Brad, to your point, you can probably book that upset for Jokic right there. But I'm just gonna say, I have picked the Warriors to win in that first round series against the Kings. I don't think that's anything crazy. The Warriors are the Warriors. I don't have to over-explain that. For me, it just comes down to the fact that this is gonna be the first time that the Kings have been in the playoffs in 16 years, and the only people on their roster with true playoff experience are their head coach Mike Brown, their shooting guard, Kevin Herter, who went to the Eastern Conference Finals with the Hawks. We know how that
Red
went.
Velvet. Shout out Red
Red Velvet. Shout out Red Velvet. Shout out Red Velvet. And Harrison Barnes, who at this point in his career is a role-playing veteran. He's still a good scorer, but there's a reason why he's not on the Warriors anymore. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't see the Kings being able to pull it off. I think it'll be a competitive series. Maybe it'll go 6 games, because to both of your points, the Warriors do not know how to win games on the road. And the Kings have a better record, so good for them in that regard. They're going to have that advantage. But yeah, I just think the Warriors are going to have too much firepower. I can't see them getting it done. And in that regard, Cal, who is your potential upset? Who do you think is going to go home early? Who's somebody that, I don't know if you're a betting man or not, but who is somebody that you would bet against as you look across the playoffs?
So because we're recording this before the game tonight and tomorrow, I'm just going to go out on a limb and go against my original prediction before the season. I picked the Grizzlies to make it to the finals, and the Bucks in the East, which we'll get to in a second. But I really think, and I'm going to say the Lakers can take down the Grizzlies in that 7-2 matchup. Now, if the Lakers end up losing tonight, they obviously wouldn't be able to play the Grizzlies, but I just think from a psychological aspect. LeBron in that series with the Grizzlies having Steven Adams out, Brandon Clark out, he's been in the league too long. He knows how to manipulate things, and I just see LeBron and them beating the Grizzlies. So that's my upset pick, and I think it's no surprise. A lot of people are high on the Lakers right now, and I just love what they're doing. And I think with Memphis having a few ups and downs and some personal drama with what they've been going through with Ja and everybody, I just think the time is right for the Lakers to say, nah, y'all have slept on us all year, and we're going to come out and throw some punches. So I could see them beating Memphis, and that's going to be my pick. What about you, Brad?
Cal, I'm going to say this. I agree. The Grizzlies are on watch. The league is watching the Grizzlies because a lot of people don't take them seriously. They don't. With the gritty in and all that stuff and the rah-rah from Dylan Brooks, no one really takes the Grizzlies seriously. But with that being said, maybe they grow some, some hair on their chest. And maybe this is the time where, that they dethrone the king. But certainly the Grizzlies are on notice. I'm not going to say Warriors over Kings is an upset because when you think about recent history, come on. No disrespect to the Kings, but recent history.
Correct.
Yeah. And I do think the Warriors are going to end up winning that series in 6 games, personally. But I'm going to say this. I don't think this team will be upset. But the Denver Nuggets are coming in a little shaky into the playoffs. As I said, right now we don't know who they'll play. And like I said, they're hoping for the Lakers to win. So that will soften my argument. But I'm just curious to see if their struggles have been figured out by the time, tip-off comes for their game 1. They've held on to the 1 seed all year long, but they're banged up right now. You have Jokic with a calf. You got Aaron Gordon. Wow, I don't know why I messed that up. Aaron Gordon, who's, played very well for the Nuggets this year. He has a shoulder. Porter Jr. always got something going on. Murray has a thumb. They have a lot of vets on this team. And hopefully if the vets play well, that can carry them through the first round, give their key players some rest, and maybe they're fresh for that second round matchup. But the real key for me is how are the role players in the bench going to perform for the Nuggets? So I'm curious to see how they perform in the first round. Like I said, I don't know necessarily an upset. If they happen to play the Pelicans, who I think are going to come out, I think the Nuggets should have no problem beating the Pelicans. I think it'll be a 5-6 game series, but certainly they're on a watch too because they have been in this position for the last few years and have not climbed the mountaintop, similar to the 76ers on the Eastern Conference side.
Yeah, the league is watching the Nuggets. The league's been watching the Nuggets all year. I wouldn't say people are rooting against Jokic necessarily, but I think that there is some fatigue with their lackluster performances in the postseason. And I think that, for better or worse, has definitely influenced some of the voters who have submitted their MVP votes since those were due at the close of yesterday afternoon. Speaking of closing up, as we wrap up this inaugural episode, which we're all so glad you were part of this journey. And if you haven't already, like, subscribe, follow all of us individually because you love us. And we love basketball. And what better way to close it out than, our championship picks. So with that being said, I'm gonna start with you again, Cal. Who do you got in the finals?
So I like Milwaukee. Milwaukee's been my team all year. I picked them to start the year. Even though Giannis probably won't win the MVP, we all know he's one of the most valuable players in the last 5 to 10 years. And he's going to continue to improve, and his work ethic, his positivity. I mean, I've never seen a superstar not be hated by anybody. You can go down the list of anyone. You can't dislike Giannis. There's nothing you can say bad about him. And that goes to show, 2 years ago when he put up 50 in a game 6 of the finals, I believe. And I just see them making it back in the Eastern Conference. I think Boston has a shot, but without Ime Udoka, I think it's a different dynamic there. And we haven't even touched on the Celtics once. So I do like Milwaukee over Boston. And in the West, I'm going to say Phoenix. I can't go against Phoenix. And I know that's, kind of a cop-out Bucks Phoenix rematch from 2 years ago. But if they stay healthy, they're the most dangerous team in the league. When DeAndre Ayton's your fourth option, and he was a number 1 pick in 2018, I think that says something about your roster and what you've done. And so even with the departure of Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson, KD erases any need that a team might have. So got to stick with Phoenix, but KD and Chris Paul's health could be questionable. But until that happens, I'm going to stick with Phoenix and Milwaukee to be my 2 picks in the finals. Brad, what are you thinking with this one?
Hard to go against that pick. I'm going to start off in the Eastern Conference. In the Eastern Conference Finals, is going to be the team that I picked to be the dark horse when the season started. It's going to be the Bucks and the 76ers in the Eastern Conference. And I think that the elation that's going to come from the 76ers finally getting to a conference finals, and it's been so many years since they've been there. They're going to run into a buzzsaw that is the Milwaukee Bucks, and I think the Bucks are going to win that series in 6. The Giannis is going to have a chip on his shoulder. Obviously, I don't know if MVP is going to motivate him, but certainly with Embiid winning it, should win it, gives Giannis a little bit extra motivation to really just run through the Eastern Conference and get back to the NBA Finals. On the Western Conference side of things, it's going to be Warriors Suns, and I don't think you're going to like my pick. I'm going Warriors in 7. I'm going to say it's the bench for the Warriors that's going to be the difference. We know the stars that are in the Suns, but this team has just recently been assembled, and because of injury, they haven't been together. Now KD can seamlessly fit into any system. Seamlessly. He's one of the greatest offensive players to ever walk the face of the earth. And I think long after he's gone, he'll continue to be that. But when you think about the bench players and the fact that the Warriors have been there, I think the Suns have it next year. But I don't think this is the year for them to get to the NBA Finals. So I'm going to say the Warriors in 7, they're going to win a crazy Game 7 in Phoenix. I can't imagine the atmosphere in the Foothill Center down in Phoenix. But when we get to the Eastern from the NBA Finals, I'm going to say Bucks in 6. Bucks are going to win that series in 6. Run out of gas. The defense is going to, or the drop off defensively for the Warriors, is going to catch up to them. And I just think that Drew Holiday, who has been real steady all year, well deserving of an all-star nod, I think he's going to show up big. And I think as the playoffs progress, we're going to see more and more Middleton become more Middleton. So I'm going to say Bucks in 6 as my finals pick, David. So curious to see who you're going to pick.
I mean, you guys know who I'm picking because I sent you it before we jumped on this. But I mean, yeah, I got Bucks and Suns. I got a rematch. I think it goes 7 games. And unfortunately, I am going to lean Bucks in that. KD will forever be my guy. Hard for me to pick against him, but I just do not trust Chris Paul's knees. I don't trust his elbows, his ankles. I don't really trust anything about Chris Paul except for his passing and his ability to get me good car insurance, which even that sometimes may be up for debate. So the Suns have a great team. Let me correct that. The Suns have a great starting 4. Even the 5th slot remains to be kind of seen. So the Bucks' depth, their experience, I think is really going to pay dividends for them. And the fact that even though the Eastern Conference is a better conference, I think that they are better positioned to endure the slings and arrows of getting to the conference finals and making it into the NBA Finals better than, to be honest, really any team in the West can say. Because truthfully, across the board, in my opinion, the Western Conference playoff picture is pretty shaky. All the rosters, I mean, have their own, weaknesses and strengths, and a lot of them are pretty glaring on one side or the other. So the Bucks, there's a reason they have the best record in the NBA. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not a huge Giannis guy, but Cal, like you said, he's great. You can't hate against him. I guess maybe if you're a ladder, you probably are still holding that whole situation against him when, but outside of that, he's done wonders for the city of Milwaukee. He's a great figure for the NBA. I'm pretty sure Chick-fil-A loves him. So yeah, he's probably going to get back to the finals, and he's going to be a real problem, if that's the case. So, speaking of problems, we didn't have one on this podcast, and that's why you're still here. So, we appreciate you for tuning in. This is one of many, so we can't talk about everything because, like I said, then you're not going to want to come back and listen to more and learn and grow and gain with us because we're such a great group of people. And this great group of people that I have on here today that I get to share this space with, I just want to give you both a shout out. Cal, special shout out to you. I appreciate you for coming up with this idea. Conversations with Cal. This is a little crossover episode. This has been awesome. I think that this is definitely the start of something really fun. And Brad, we've done this dance before. I appreciate you taking time out of watching the beat that you cover for the Atlanta Hawks. I know you're going to go and record your own episode after this. We appreciate you hopping on to bring your league insight and knowledge. And before we get out of here, I do want to let both of you guys give your own little peace out. So please, Cal, I'll start with you again. Tell the people what you got cooking. Give a shout out if you have somebody you want to shout out. And again, I just want to say thank you for taking time out of your day to make this happen, man. This was fun.
Hey, man, I want to shout out you, David, for making this happen, for connecting Brad and I across the bay from each other. I'm sure we're going to meet up soon and watch some NBA playoffs because, these next 2 months are going to be fun. It makes me excited to know I can come home every night and just plop down on the couch and watch some good basketball because, David, that's where we connected back in the day is through playing basketball. And, we're at this point in life and still connected. So I want to give you a shout out and say thank you for having us on. And it's been a blast. So that's all I got. Brad, what about you?
I'm just grateful to be in the presence of greatness. Both of you guys, I just thank you for the opportunity to come on here and talk something other than the Atlanta Hawks. It's been really nice to kind of look over the fence and talk about the whole league because it's been such a great league. And this is going to be a great show. So I'm just excited to be along on the ride. And like I said, the Hawks did win. So I'm gonna save my I told y'all so's on that episode of Sports Ethos Atlanta Hawks. I'm going to record after this. But all in all, thank you guys for tuning in. Great people, great company, and great talk, especially about basketball.
Absolutely. So, like I said, more to come. Stay tuned in. Make sure, don't make me say it again. Like, subscribe, follow, whatever you do it for us because we do this for y'all and we appreciate you. So, with that, we out of here and I say peace.